What's up, my beautiful people? When we hear about data breaches, we generally hear about two things. The first is lawsuits filed by one party against the other, and the second is about regulatory enforcement actions. And I want to talk about the difference between those. A lawsuit is when one party sues the other as a result of an injury that occurred. Those are based in common law. So there are things like negligence, breach of contract. And those lawsuits have a very formal process. There's a judge, there's depositions, there's a whole civil litigation process that has to be followed. The idea is to make one party whole as a result of the injury caused by another. The second thing are regulatory fines. Regulatory fines are brought by state and other entities who have passed regulations in order to make sure companies are following those regulations properly. Instead of being backwards looking, you harm me, therefore, they're actually meant to be deterrence focused in the future, trying to make sure that a company doesn't do the same thing or that other companies who are similarly situated do the right thing. They're less formal. Oftentimes it's heard by an administrative law judge. There may be relaxed rules of evidence, and then the whole thing can be reviewed by a judge later on. Recently, an accounting firm in New York reached a $60,000 settlement with the New York Attorney General. But because they're an accounting firm, they also may be subject to an action in Washington, D.C. from the Securities and Exchange Commission, or in California for breaching the CCPA, and they could be subject to a data breach lawsuit filed somewhere in federal court. So that's a lot on your plate to deal with. If you read a lot of data breach lawsuits, you'll often see reference to those regulations. But the attorney isn't suing under that regulation because only the state attorney general can do that. Instead, they're using them as persuasive evidence as negligence only. In other words, they don't do what lawyers call create a private right of action. So what does that mean for your company? Well, it means there's a whole patchwork of regulations and standards that you're going to be required to follow. It's going to be different for you based on your industry and where you're working and the customers you're reaching. So that's why it's so important to get a handle on your cyber liability. Stay cyber safe, you guys.